what do you see the benefits are for contractors quoting, basically being paid for their quotes and their estimates?
Yeah, I'll explain it to this, especially when I was running my construction business. It was just a small residential remodeling company. And this is one of those things that I kind of just stumbled. We were talking earlier. This is one of those things I stumbled across. It wasn't like I started my business and I had this system in place. And because I'm all that smart, I was really just, as I said, I was just too dumb to know any different, and then eventually kind of figured it out. But what I would tell homeowners when I was talking to homeowners and said, okay, well, we'll and we've talked about their budget, or they've described their project to me. I said, okay, well, what's your budget? And they may or may not tell me their budget. And if they didn't, that's okay. I would give them a number and say, well, it sounds like the project you were describing, for example, let's say was $100,000. And they would say, well, we're not going to spend $100,000. I say, well, great. 2 seconds ago, you didn't know what the budget is, and now we know it's not $100,000. So then I would say, okay, well, how does $90,000 sound? Well, we're not going to spend that either. And eventually we'll get to a number that they would say, okay, well, we have $75,000 in our budget. Great. That is not a problem for us because we do that all the time. The project you described is $100,000. So if any contractor says that they could do it for 75, they're either ignorant or they're incompetent. So this may not be the right project for us because you described a $100,000 project, but you only have 75. The way that we can help you with that is that you would hire us to come in and work with you to help you make some selections and maybe change some things around to get it down to that $75,000. That's going to take a lot of work. We're going to meet several times over the next couple of weeks, and we're going to do drawings and we're going to do all of this kind of stuff. But that is work, and we're going to help you get there. And we can build you a $75,000 project, no problem. In fact, we're probably going to plan for a $65,000 project and build in $10,000 in contingency because things will change. And we're so professional at what we do, we can predict the future. We know that you're going to upgrade some things and want to have some other things. So it's that kind of conversation that I would have with a homeowner. And so someone that doesn't agree with that, a homeowner that says, well, I've talked to 3 other contractors and they've already given me a price, and your estimate, what you're telling me, is already 30% higher than them. Then I would say, oh, you've already talked to 3 people and they've given you a number. Let me ask you, why haven't you hired them? And there's only, and homeowners that are listening out there, you will never answer that question. And I understand that, but here's the answer to that question 100% of the time. If someone has given you a number and you haven't to do a scope of work, and you haven't hired them, it's because you don't trust them. So when you're comparing me as 30%, 20% higher than someone you don't trust, it doesn't really make sense. And then I will go into explain to the homeowner. And sometimes, people get a little offended sometimes, but that's why you kind of got to walk through it very slowly. I'll say, okay, let's imagine this, that I go out and I look at 10 projects, and me as speaking as the contractor, I go out and I look at 10 projects and I spend time putting it together for everybody, and I get 3 of them. That's a 30% closing rate, which isn't too bad for a remodeling contractor. Then I would ask the homeowner, who pays for the 7 that I don't get? And oftentimes you'll get a response, well, that's just the cost of doing business. And I love it when they say that. I'll say, you're exactly right. It is the cost of doing business. And who pays for that cost? And sometimes they don't know what kind of where I'm going, or sometimes they say, well, and here's the answer to that. It's the 3 people that hired me to do the work. And so I feel like if I don't charge for my proposals, then I'm overcharging the people that I should be rewarding for hiring me. So I'll say that's why we charge for proposals, because your job should cost exactly what your job should cost, and it shouldn't depend on my ability or inability to sell anybody else. So that's why we have to charge you to do this work. And so they say, well, you're going to charge me to come out and give an estimate? That's where I kind of back up and say, no, we just gave you an estimate. It sounds like it's about $100,000. We're professionals and we do this all the time. It could certainly be 90. It could certainly be something else, but that was your estimate and we didn't charge you anything for that. To come out, to meet with you, to develop a scope of work, to do all of the work, do all the stuff. Well, that's work. And we get paid to do work. And and then that's where I get, but if you hire us to do that work, here's the process we'll follow, and here's the experience that you'll have. Some people get very offended at that because contractors are supposed to work for free. And those are type of homeowners that are going to put other contractors out of business. So let them go do that for somebody else.